Welcome back into OneSoccer today. Let's turn our attention now to the Canadian MLS squads. We begin with TFC, gentlemen. Another loss for them over the weekend, 2-0 to Cincinnati, another team that's struggling to stay out of the basement. And over the weekend, TFC president Bill Manning spoke to Neil Davidson of the Canadian Press. Great article, check it out. And here's one quote in particular. Bill Manning said, "This season is as difficult a campaign as I've ever experience." Of course, he also talked about missing the playoffs and an aging roster. And Ollie, I'll just begin with you. When you look at everything that Bill Manning said about what's been, a team that's on track for having the worst season ever in franchise history, what did you make of it?
Well, a lot of it was very blunt, which I think is a good thing to hear if you're a TFC fan, because I don't think Bill Manning was shying away from, how deep the problems are and how much work there is to do. I think he, at least on the basis of what I read into that interview, I think he understands that, which is a good sign. But he can't fix it alone, right? Like firstly, he needs a permanent coach. And secondly, he also needs to have a strong general manager who are going to help him to execute what is a massive off-season overhaul that's coming up for TFC. And right now, I just think there's real question marks there. When you look at Ali Curtis, who we haven't really seen or heard from for a while, you look at the kind of moves he's made over the past couple of years, it's not altogether too convincing. So to now expect him to go out and really rebuild this team and in a way that's going to be very, very difficult this off-season, it seems like a bit of wishful thinking for me. Then you also have the issue, as I mentioned, with the coach not being in place yet. So I think Bill Manning knows what's needed. It's just a case of executing it. And when you look at the evidence of the past 2 or 3 years and how it's been handled, it's hard to feel a ton of confidence that that's going to be done in the right way.
I thought the quicksand analogy was a pretty good one, because it seems like, every time that you try to take a step forward, you just sink a little bit deeper. And if there is one reason, to believe that things will turn around, it's a pretty clear acknowledgement here that changes are on the way, Andy, and that it doesn't sound like anyone's immune from that as well. So if you're a fan of the team and you're screaming for change, it seems like that, there's more than an acknowledgement of that from the upper levels within the club, which is a good thing for you.
Yeah, I think what needs to be acknowledged, though, is I think, fans have been screaming for change for a while. And let's be honest, Toronto FC did nothing in the recent window. So is that also a sign that, they've resigned to the fact that they're just going to get to the end of the season here and then make those changes? So that, I think, is another question TFC fans would love to have answered. But how about I come to you, Gareth, with a little fill in the blank here? And it doesn't have to necessarily be a word. It can be a sentence. It can be, an actual something that you feel is to blame for the wheels falling off for Toronto FC. So, Gareth, blank is to blame for this horrible season.
A series of unfortunate events and miscalculations. That's what it comes down to, because it's not just one thing. From the COVID to the performances of the players on the field, to the lack of a system, to the Altidore issues, from not having designated players involved. I mean, there's countless things, Andy, that we can point to that's contributed to this. What's alarming for me and what's ultimately disappointing, I thought that even if it was going to be a bad season because of the elements that have been thrown their way, that things couldn't get this bad. And let's be honest, that was a tough watch Saturday night. Cincinnati 2, TFC 0. And when it comes down to it, as of right now, for me, the biggest reason, beyond those series of unfortunate events and miscalculations, is the coaching change. They got it wrong in Chris Armas, and now they don't have a system to stand up to. The players weren't fit enough to play that style of football. It buried the team from a health perspective early. And once Javier Perez, Perez is a smart guy. He has smart people around him, but it's very hard to implement a new system midstream without a full complement of players to go out and play. So that is number one on the to-do list for Bill Manning. Get the right manager in. They dearly miss Greg Vanney. Just the way that he was able to keep a group with all these personalities and people with different ambitions together. They need to get the right manager and have them help build this from the ground up once again.
Yeah, for me, the easiest way to sum it up is that 2017 is to blame for the wheels falling off at TFC, because it's the hardest thing in sports is to dismantle a championship winning team, right? It's what separates the Sir Alex Fergusons and the Bill Belichicks from everyone else, is that they're ruthless in those moments when change needs to happen. They'll take it apart and not feel sentimentality around that. No, it was exceptionally difficult at TFC because you had a team that had a history of just almost total failure that suddenly became the best team in the history of the league, right? So it was even more difficult than usual to take that team apart and make the kind of moves that were needed to turn the page, and they just haven't done that. They've got all kinds of big contracts now hanging around their neck, and it's very difficult.
Ollie, so true. Well said.